So when it comes to labeling, don't be afraid to use vertical, or instead of going horizontal, you go a little bit vertical with your type, because in this case, if I try to label this small little 2% one, it doesn't always work out in the same size, and you have to make it really small, and it doesn't quite work. So my solution was to kind of go outside of the graph for these smaller numbers and kind of go a little bit vertical, and it kind of helps the eye kind of connect this pie slice with that particular percentage number, even though it's not actually resting on the pie slice. And another thing I think that helps is you see how these are kind of right next to each other, and they kind of conflict with each other. So when I'm trying to break down this information, they're just competing way too much. So another thing you can do is to shift this to the upper left and maybe shift this down a little bit. And so that kind of helps the eye assign that 38% to the purple and the 48% to the blue. And these are really small changes, but they do add up to help people digest the information a little bit better. So just little tweaks there we can do. And so now we can add our little labels in the same Helvetica, maybe kind of similar to this up here, kind of our finished version, kind of just adding it. We could stack it, so instead of having this go all the way out, I could put this food and agriculture on 2 lines, and that can kind of help since I have a little bit of room there, so you can kind of be creative in how you do all your labels. I think the label here somehow got erased, but you could see how I'm also assigning the same color to the label that the pie slice is, just another way of connecting everything together so the people who view this don't have to think very hard. You never want the viewer to have to think. They should just get it. They connect everything where it needs to be connected, and bada bing, bada boom. And finally, I have my little title here. I didn't mind overlaying it over the pie slice. I think that looks fine how it is. Just using Helvetica Bold here, so I can kind of make that title very readable. I made the total slightly bigger than the other information here so that people can know that this is what the total amount is. And you can even put down here, 2015 or whatever year it was that the data was captured, whatever detailed information you have to add. So let me go ahead and do that to this little pie chart and see kind of how it looks, kind of the one we did for the class, and I'll be right back. So here's the version in the class that we did together, kind of made some adjustments compared to the sample one I did before filming this class, and just kind of making those a little bit more bold. There's a couple things we could do. I added a drop shadow to this overlay text. We can add a drop shadow to the pie slices themselves. So I'm just going to do a drop shadow effect there and maybe do a nice blurring effect, so a nice distant big blur. Kind of see how that looks, and maybe do a 44%. Just adding a little bit more depth there. And another thing we could do is right now we're reading the text upside down, which is obviously a little bit harder to do. So let's make it easy on the viewer. Let's just do something really easy. I'm going to select everything but our 2 little numbers there. I'm just going to rotate the pie because it doesn't matter how the pie looks, because as long as the pie slices are in the right divisions, it's going to look great. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that's 38% and that's 40%. That just makes it a lot easier for them to read it. And I'm just going to go ahead and adjust a few of these numbers and get it right, and then we'll be done. Here's our final little pie chart. We can go ahead and duplicate this and make a cleaner version if we want to be able to have one without the 3D. We can kind of present both of them and see which one looks better. So I'm just going to go ahead and select our object here. I'm going to right click. I'm going to ungroup. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of the 3D effect that we applied, and we can kind of adjust these really quickly and see which version we like better. We like the flat, more clean design. If we like a little bit of the 3D, the 3D is optional, just adds a little something, but the 3D tools in Adobe Illustrator are not super advanced compared to other programs, so it doesn't have kind of that shine or gloss you would get with other types of 3D renderings you would see in maybe Adobe Dimensions or another 3D program, but maybe one day there will be better 3D options in Adobe Illustrator. So there we go. There's our little pie chart. Brighter, it's accurate, so everything is divided perfectly, and I think it's dynamic enough where we can definitely see the information in a very easily digestible way. So now that we've done a pie chart, we have another A little bit more difficult chart to tackle. It's going to be a line graph or a bar graph. We're going to be working with this next complex set of information. You can open this in your Word document. We're going to do the annual average household income according to generations, and it's going to have a lot of different varying lines going across the graph. So we're going to create a line graph, but we're going to try to make it visually exciting by using our colors and kind of making it also easy to read as well. So we're going to do that next, and then we have just one or two more, and then we'll be done with our graphic, and we would have gone through quite a bit of different infographic situations, not super duper complex infographics, but this is just enough to kind of get you started and getting you really thinking about how to tackle visually displaying some of these otherwise boring facts. So I wanted to show you one little extra tip when we're doing the pie graph chart. So I have our pie graph tool selected in Adobe Illustrator. I'm just going to draw kind of a really quick pie graph. Instead of going across, I'm actually going to go down into the columns. So I'm going to break this down by a couple different, I think that's 50%. Let's just make sure I have everything correct. Let's do 25, do 100%. So just kind of doing some random numbers that all do it 100%. And since we're doing it down by the column, and you can go up here and transpose it if you ever want to get it back to a regular pie chart with pie slices. I'm going to go ahead and switch it back. And now it's down in the column. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And so you'll notice it broke it down into different pie slices. What's great about this is each one of these circles, let me see if I can't close this down and go ahead and isolate this. Let's go ungroup, kind of unlock that and kind of ungroup these and get these as different colors so I can kind of really show you what's going on here. There we go, finally. I had to ungroup it quite a bit. But the great thing is all of these are scaled perfectly. So each one of these circles represent the exact ratio according to 100%. So just like the pie slices, this is accurate. And what's great about this is you can do a Venn diagram, create a Venn diagram out of this. Once I go ahead and get some colors set up. I love Venn diagrams because I think it's a really interesting way to kind of show scale relative to each other. So I'm going to zoom in and make these a little bit bigger. As long as I scale them all at the same time, the scales between each other stay the same. So this was our biggest one and this is our smaller one. I love overlapping these, kind of like this. And then I love going to blending modes. I'm going to select all of them. I'm going to bring out my transparency window, and this is where blending modes are. And I'm going to go down to the overlay blending mode. And you notice how it overlays, and this works really well on lighter backgrounds. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring this over so you can kind of see how they can kind of overlap with each other, and you can kind of have things overlap. We're going to do something similar in another stat, but this is called a Venn diagram. We could bring that bigger one up front, and then you could put the percentages in here. So I can go ahead and ungroup this and just kind of bring in the stats. I know these aren't 100%. But it's just an interesting way to display. Instead of doing a pie chart, you can display it in this Venn diagram format, which can be kind of a little bit more interesting. I know these aren't the exact facts, and I'll kind of show you an example of something I did for a client very similar to this. It's just a different way to kind of show a breakdown of percentages. So I just wanted to share that with you, just kind of a different way, kind of knowing how do I create circles all relative to each other that all break down to 100% just like a pie chart. How do I do that? And that was just going down the columns instead of going across in rows is how you did that using the pie chart in Adobe Illustrator.